What are the financial red flags in a relationship then?
Number one is they don't want to talk about money. If you don't want to talk about money, red flag, the biggest red flag of all. Because we could differ on how we see money. We can even have different values for a few things. But if your partner simply will not talk about money, you have a huge problem.
Why?
If you can't talk about money, then you can't even understand where they're coming from, and they are not curious about what you want. So how are you ever going to get on the same page? Think about this. A lot of people think we need to have the conversation about money. As if it's one conversation. Would you have the conversation about raising kids? No. You'll have thousands in your life. That's the way it should be. Money is very much like parenting. Not like, should we play pickleball or tennis today? Irrelevant. So we want to have lots of conversations about money. And that means we need to, first of all, be willing to talk about it. And then we need to find a way to have fun doing it.
Why don't we? And who doesn't? Is it men? Is it women that don't do it more? Or who's not talking about money and why aren't they talking about it?
It's not about gender. It has nothing to do with gender in terms of who does or doesn't talk about money. There are avoiders. That's one of 4 categories, money types that I've identified. Avoiders hate talking about money. And they will use a series of conscious and unconscious techniques to avoid talking about money. They'll say things like, why do you always have to talk about money? Can't we just have a nice night out? Or, you're so much better at this. You just handle it. You're just so much savvier at this stuff. That's an avoider.
Do they know their own financial situation?
No.
So they don't know their own financial situation and they don't want to talk about it?
Correct. And by the way, we all have something like this. It could be our fitness. It could be our relationship with our parents. There's something in our life that we know we should deep down, but we avoid it.
Yeah.
And there's no immediate consequence. Like if I don't call my college friend, it's fine. I could probably call him tomorrow, and you can go on and on and on like that until one day you can't. Same thing with our fitness. It's very easy to procrastinate on fitness or money because it's not like your house is being taken away or even your cable's being shut off. It'll probably be fine until one day you hit this brick wall and it's not.
So that's the avoider. That's the first money type.
Yep. Next up, optimizer. I have a soft spot because I am an optimizer. Optimizers, we love to live in the spreadsheet. It's like, let me sit and calculate this, and what if I run a compound interest calculation, a Monte Carlo calculation, and what if we do this but not that? I love calculating everything. And left alone, I would sit there and do that for the rest of my life, okay? The problem is you can take it a little too far. Now, I don't think I've taken it too far. I think I'm perfect on my spreadsheets, but my wife has taught me enough's enough. We've won that part of life. Let's focus on another part, connection and fun and experience.
Are these people often thought of as boring?
Yes, they are deep down, they are boring. I was boring when I was sitting there thinking money is only about numbers. It's not. Money is about adventure and possibility and generosity. And you will often find optimizers, I'll give them a challenge. I'll give them a $100 challenge. Also, you have to take $100 in the next week and spend it on yourself. They cannot do it. They will spend it on their dog. They'll spend it on their kid. They'll spend it on their partner, but they will not do it for themselves. And I go, why didn't you do it? They go, Ramit, do you know that if you put $100 in the S&P 500 and you compound that for the next 45 years, it'll turn into this much? I go, I don't give a shit. Spend the money. Because money is not simply meant to be hoarded, right? It's meant to create a rich life. And when you have optimizers, the thing is they can get you to a very good place. They will probably have your account set up, dialed in. They'll be investing. Great. They're going to be very proud. Look at the compound interest returns. All that is fantastic, but it can be taken too far.
These are the people that die and then you figure out that they had like $9 million in some saving account.
What a waste.
They never tasted the caviar, but they've got...
Yeah, like people send these newspaper articles around like, oh, local librarian discovered to have $9 million. And I go, what a tragedy. What a tragedy to live a smaller life than you have to. I want you to save, I want you to invest, but I also want you to try a nice meal. Or if you don't like nice food or you don't want a nice t-shirt, also fine. Get super generous. Give that money. Surprise the people around you. Tip 50%. So those are optimizers. The third category is worriers. they love to worry. Typically, they picked up worrying from their parents, almost always, and their entire relationship with money is worrying. Are we going to have enough? What if we run out of money? What if we don't have enough to pay at the gas station? And oftentimes, it's very surprising because I told you that 50% of couples don't know how much they make, right? So they'll say like, we need more. We don't have enough right now. And I'll ask them, how much do you think you make? This just happened a couple of weeks ago on a podcast episode. They thought they made around $70,000 a year, okay? We add up all their stuff. They make $120,000 a year. So I go, well, here you go. You wanted to make an extra 40K. You actually make 50K more than you thought. Do you feel any better? And she goes, no. Because the way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to the amount in your bank account. So worriers worry, that's how they relate. They can't imagine any other relationship to money. And my job is to help them realize, first of all, let's actually look at your numbers. Let me help you understand what it means. Do you have enough? What does it take to have enough? And then can you start to develop a new relationship with money? It's almost like a new taste bud. I'm never going to tell you to eat tomatoes if you hate tomatoes, but I am going to teach you, maybe you like okra, and we can develop a new taste for that. Finally, the dreamer. The dreamer believes that success is one deal away. If we just close this deal, if I just get this thing, and they tend to fall into get-rich-quick schemes. Lots of scams, MLMs, a lot of crypto shitcoin scams, like all this BS. But they are extremely resistant to calm, low-cost, long-term investing. In other words, the way that most people build real wealth. They think it's boring. They even have little phrases like, ugh, I don't want to be stuck in a 9-to-5 like those suckers. I'm like, that sucker makes 10 times what you make. What are you talking about? But they have simply been surrounded with the idea, one more deal and I'll finally make it.
They must be hard to be married to.
It's impossible. It's really, really difficult. They don't, not only do they not want to talk about money, when they finally do talk about money, they're almost living in a different world. And often you will find that dreamers can only dream because they are being subsidized by someone in their life, usually their partner. And if their partner were to leave, for example, the house of cards would collapse. And actually, that's usually the only thing that gets them to truly change.
So if we've got these 4 money types, the avoider, the optimizer, the warrior, the dreamer, in your view, who lives a happier life?
You can live a happy life with any of these.
Yeah.
Also, you can change any of these types.
But on average, one person's going to probably lead.
Well, I mean, I'm the optimizer and I'm pretty happy. So is that the answer?
Yeah.
Optimizers are great. They love their spreadsheet. I think that
the warrior clearly is not going to live the happiest life.
the dreamer is actually quite happy.
Yeah.
The dreamer's quite happy.
They live in optimism.
Yeah, they're living in a world that's not real. It's subsidized by somebody else. They're always optimistic about what's going to happen next week, next month, next year, never realizing the catastrophe that they are leaving behind them. So that's the whole issue. This is the reason I wrote the book is it's one thing to treat money in a certain way on your own when you're single. You can be irresponsible, you can be an optimizer, but when you're in a relationship, it's not about you anymore. It's about the two of you as a unit. And so you have to deeply understand yourself, and then you have to be willing to communicate with your partner and really create a rich life vision for the two of you. Most couples I talk to have no vision for their money. That's why they fight over who spent $50 at Target. I go, who gives a shit about Target? Financial problems are almost never about overspending at Target. The biggest problem with couples and money is they have no rich life vision. What is money to us? What do we want to use money for? How do we want to feel about it? So they're confronted with 1,000 different decisions with their money every week, and they have no vision to guide them. This is for us. This is not for us.
One of the things I've always wondered in relationships is how many couples know how much money the other couple has in their savings account and their total sort of investment portfolio. Because I've never been in a relationship where, I mean, I've only really been in 2 relationships, you could say, but I've been with, dated people over the years, been with my current partner for many, many, many years. But even my current partner has no idea how much money I have.
Mm.
Zero idea.
When will you have that conversation?
Probably never.
Should we bring him out right now? Let's bring him out.
I've just never had the conversation. If you need something, we can get it.
Yeah.
And it's just always been like that
Yeah.
in my life.
Okay, so I made a mistake in my own relationship. I was dating my now wife for many years. And at one point she had asked some question about her 401k or something. And I said, well, there is a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Here's a copy of it. And I was joking around with her. And so I ended up learning all about her finances. So I knew about her entire financial picture. It didn't occur to me to talk about my own. And a little while later, she very assertively said, this doesn't feel fair. You know everything about my finances, but I don't know about yours. And I realized I violated my own rule in chapter 9 of my first book, which is talk about money early on, talk about it regularly. So we talked about it. We talked about, it's actually one of the most memorable conversations we had because talked about the numbers, talked about my pride in how hard I had worked to build my business and invest for 20 years, 25 years. And then we talked about what it meant for us. Like, what kind of life do we want to have? Do we want to live here? Do we want to live there? Do we want to have kids? Do we want to eat this type of food? Travel? Like, that conversation about possibility is the conversation I want every couple to have because it's about possibility and you can start to dream. And that dream is important. You can get to the logistics. Of course, we'll get to that. But so few of us still dream with our money.
But I think for someone like you who is the optimizer and who's probably quite proud of the system you've created.
I
for
love
yourself,
systems.
But there's going to be so many people listening now that are in a relationship and they are maybe early in the dating process and maybe they've been with a person 6 months. They've taken them out on lots of nice dates and they have $1,000 in their savings account and their partner has no idea.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, Ramit, if I tell my partner what's in this bank account, she is going to be shocked or he is going to be shocked and they're going to leave me. So I'm keeping this shit a secret because they are living under an illusion.
That I have more than I actually have.
Yeah.
But remember this, just because you don't have as much money as you want doesn't mean that you are less of a person. What could be more...
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
What could be more appealing than saying, you know what? Would you be open to talk about our finances? We're getting a little bit serious. I know we're kind of talking about taking the next step. I think money's going to be an important part of it. I know it is for me. And I wonder if we could sit down and talk about it. First, just being proactive. How many people watching and listening are like, I wish my partner, whether they're dating or my partner of 20 years, would come to me and say, can we sit down and talk about money?
But the partner that is shameful about their financial situation.
Yes.
If I run it back 10 years, just over 10 years ago, I was living in an area called Rushholm. I was in a shared house living with a few people who had come to the UK illegally.
Okay.
I didn't have a carpet in my room. I was in a single bed, didn't have duvets or bed sheets or anything. And every day I woke up and thought to myself, how am I going to eat today? So I'd find different ways to find food. At the same time, I was dating this girl called Ruby. This girl called Ruby had no idea. She'd never seen where I lived. She wasn't aware that I was looking behind sofas in takeaways for pound coins. There is no possibility in the world that if I would have ever told Ruby the financial situation I was in. Yeah. So I don't know what to do in that situation. And I'm sure I would assert that maybe 30% of people listening right now don't want to tell their partner their financial situation because they're deeply embarrassed or shameful to the point that they think their partner might leave, like them less, be less attracted to them if they really knew the truth.
I totally agree. It's crazy how much shame we have around money. And it's a young guy not having enough. It's a young woman who has $18,000 of credit card debt. It's all over the spectrum. That's the second point, which is if you want to talk about money, talk about money. Don't wait for your partner to do it. bring it up yourself, even if you feel embarrassed or ashamed, okay? If you're planning to make a life with this partner, you got to be able to talk about this because you're going to be talking about a lot of other personal sensitive things over the course of your life. The second thing is, what could be more attractive than somebody saying, you know, when I was in my 20s, I moved to the city, I spent a lot of money going out, and I wasn't super responsible. I racked up a lot of credit card debt. I've paid it down from $18,000 to $6,000. It's going to be paid off next year, and I just know that I'm never going back there again. Oh my God, someone who acknowledges what they did, has a good reason for it, and then most importantly has a plan, huge turn on. So what I'm begging all of us to do is to realize just because you have more or less money does not make you a better or worse person. I want to take shame away because we all have something that we are ashamed of, but not talking about it and putting it in the corner in the darkness, that doesn't solve it. That's why I love talking about the most taboo of taboo subjects: money, gender, prenups, dating. These are things that nobody's talking about. So when you hear couples on the podcast and they're talking about being married for 15 years and they've never actually had one conversation about money, I want you and everyone watching to be inspired because stuff doesn't have to be shameful and doesn't have to be kept in the dark.